After walking around for half an hour and speaking to many people about the auction houses in this city, only one name came up repeatedly. This Azure Phoenix auction house seems very popular. Let's give it a look, said Yuan. Xiao Hua nodded and followed Yuan to the location of this Azure Phoenix auction house. According to the people Yuan spoke with, the Azure Phoenix auction house is one of the wealthiest and most influential auction houses within the Eastern continent. What's more, they are backed by the Azure Phoenix sect, one of the most powerful backgrounds in this world. We are really fortunate to have arrived in this city right on the day it opens, right, Xiao Hua? N. Xiao Hua nodded her little head. The Azure Phoenix auction house only opens once every 3 years because they have to stock up valuable treasures, and coincidentally, they came at the exact day it would open. After walking around the spirit city that occupies miles of land for many minutes, Yuan and Xiao Hua have finally arrived at the Azure Phoenix auction house's entrance. Wow, this large place is the auction house? Yuan couldn't help but become amazed by the luxurious building before him that took up an entire street. Excuse me, is this the Azure Phoenix auction house? Yuan asked one of the people there just in case. Once he confirmed that they were at the right place, Yuan approached one of two pretty young ladies standing silently by the entrance, assuming she was one of the workers here. Hello, do you work here? He asked. I do, she replied with a gentle voice. Great. I came here today because I would like to sell something here. The young lady looked at Yuan with a weird face after hearing his words. I'm sorry, but we stopped accepting things for the auction a month ago, she said a moment later. What? Yuan stood there with a dumbfounded look. The young lady chuckled and spoke. Is this your first time at an auction house? Yes. Then let this sister teach you something about them. If you wish to sell something using auction houses, you must let them know ahead of time so they can put it on a list to let the guests know. People won't go to auction houses if they don't know what will be sold, you know? They have to prepare too. I see. That makes sense. Yuan sighed, feeling disappointed and slightly frustrated. Looks like I will have to sell these monster cores elsewhere. The young lady did not want to disappoint Yuan anymore, who was clearly ignorant of many things, so she remained quiet. However, the other worker there, who has been watching them since the beginning, burst out laughing. Ha ha ha! Does this kid actually want to sell that trash at our Azure Phoenix auction house? This is hilarious. Leon wrong. Why must everything that comes out of your mouth be so foul? He's clearly very young and ignorant. There's no need to mock him. The young lady beside Yuan frowned at her fellow worker's unsightly behavior. I am only speaking the truth, and the earlier he learns, the faster he will grow up. Why are you even protecting a beggar like him, Na Ying? Lian Rong coldly snorted, her gaze filled with mockery. Don't mind her, little brother. It's not a crime or disgraceful to be ignorant at times. Na Ying tried soothing Yuan, acting like his next-door friendly sister. What's wrong with you, Na Ying? Are you perhaps charmed by this kid? Ha 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 ha. I wonder how the disciples at Azure Phoenix sect will react once they learn of this. Lian Rong continued laughing. Although Yuan did not mind Lian Rong's mockery, the little girl standing beside him was boiling with anger. This insignificant little ant has no idea who she's mocking. Brother Yuan is a genius among genius, a prodigy that will shock even the upper heavens. One day, Brother Yuan will become a figure that stands above all. I cannot allow him to continue being mocked. Are you done embarrassing yourself yet? Even I am starting to feel ashamed just by being beside you. Na Ying shook her head. Are you looking for a fight, Na Ying? Oh? Do you want to fight me? Are you sure about that, senior apprentice sister? Na Ying narrowed her eyes, and the cultivation base of an expert at the peak spirit warrior realm emitted from her body. A bead of sweat appeared on Lian Rong's forehead after feeling Na Ying's pressure. Just you wait. Once we return to the sect, I will— What's with the commotion here? A strong voice suddenly resounded. A few seconds later, an old woman appeared in front of them with an annoyed face. Senior Chang! Both of the girls immediately stopped their argument and bowed to the old woman. Do not forget where the two of you are right now. Regardless of your status at the Azure Phoenix sect, you are working for me now, and I will not tolerate this kind of behavior at my Azure Phoenix auction house. I am sorry. They quickly apologized. Enough. I will deal with you two afterward. The guests are already seated. Close the doors and come inside, said Senior Chang. Wait. Just as Senior Chang turned around, a cute but overbearing voice stopped her steps. Ex-Xiao Hua? Yuan looked at her with wide eyes. What are you doing? He whispered in her ears. Don't worry, Brother Yuan. Xiao Hua will deal with this, she responded with a smile on her face. Who the hell is this little girl? Senior Chang frowned when she sensed a profound aura surrounding Xiao Hua's tiny body. It gave her a dreadful feeling. Are you the owner of this place? Xiao Hua suddenly asked. That's right. And who are you? Senior Chang responded. However, Xiao Hua did not immediately respond and pulled out her storage pouch. Then, right before their eyes, Xiao Hua pulled out a blue dagger from the pouch. The instant the dagger was revealed to the world, an unfathomable presence suddenly appeared and enveloped the place. This presence! Senior Chang stumbled backward and nearly fell on her butt when she saw the dagger and sensed its aura. This dagger is a heaven-grade weapon at the peak quality. Heavenly Frost Dagger, said Xiao Hua, and she continued in a calm manner. Who I am is not important right now. What is important, though, is that I had planned to sell this dagger at your Azure Phoenix auction house. However, because one of your workers mocked Brother Yuan and angered me, I am now having second thoughts. After a moment of silence, Senior Chang's stiff body began trembling. Who? Who dared to offend you? I will kill that bastard for you. Senior Chang's attitude took a sudden turn, shocking both Lian Rong and Na Ying, who has never seen her this agitated before, acting as though someone had just killed her son. Even Yuan couldn't help but look at Xiao Hua with wide eyes. Since when did they come here to sell that dagger? And why does she feel so different right now? That girl over there. Xiao Hua wasted no time pointing her small fingers. Senior Chang turned to look at Lian Rong, who was as pale as a ghost right now, looking like all of her blood had just been drained out of her body. What have you done, Lian Rong? Senior Chang roared at her with a furious expression. I. Unable to respond and filled with despair, the young lady named Lian Rong fell to her knees, even pissing her pants due to fear. Na Ying covered her mouth from shock as she witnessed this unexpected turn of events. What's going to happen now? Senior Chang, this is what had happened. Na Ying began explaining to her the events that took place right before she'd arrived. You foolish thing. Senior Chang was speechless. To think that Lian Rong, someone usually with keen eyes and great intelligence, to misjudge a hidden expert due to her arrogance. There is nobody you can blame but yourself for being so arrogant and failing to recognize Mount Tai. She shook her head. Please, Senior Chang, you can't kill me. I am an inner disciple from the Azure Phoenix sect. Lian Rong began begging for her life. I am not the one who will decide whether you live or die today. You are begging the wrong person. After hearing Senior Chang's words, Lian Rong immediately ran to Yuan and kowtowed before him, and she begged him with a face filled with tears and snot. Please, young master, this lowly one has failed to recognize someone as prestigious as you. Yuan was speechless. This is the first time he'd seen a young lady begging for him to spare her life. "Young man, although she has wronged, I would also like to request for your forgiveness. After all, she is an inner disciple of the Azure Phoenix sect. If you kill her, they will surely—" Yuan suddenly raised his hand and stopped her sentence. "Wait a moment. I never said anything about killing her. You were the one who spoke such words. Do not try to act as though I was the one who wants her dead." I, I understand. Lian Rong, be grateful. This young man has decided to spare your life. "Thank you, benefactor," Lian Rong cried. Yuan couldn't but help find these people's behavior weird and unnecessarily exaggerated. Why must she be executed for mocking him? If he was to kill anyone that has offended him, who knows how many people will die? I hope this won't become a trend amongst NPCs. Yuan silently prayed. Now that everything has been settled, are you willing to sell your heaven-grade dagger at our auction house? I promise you that you will not regret it. 80? No. You will receive 90% of the revenue, and we will only take 10%. Normally, it would be 75 and 25, but because we have troubled you today, I am willing to make it 90 and 10, Senior Chang suddenly said. In fact, Senior Chang did not care about the revenue of the Heavenly Frost Dagger. All that matters to her was the reputation that would come from selling it. The last time a heaven-grade weapon was sold at the Azure Phoenix auction house was 100 years ago, and it was only a low-quality weapon at that time. As for a heaven-grade weapon at the peak quality, this would be the first one in their thousands of years of history. Once the world learns of this, the Azure Phoenix auction house will surely skyrocket in popularity, and they will receive much more attention and guests in the future. You are asking the wrong person. I am not the owner of that weapon. She is. Yuan pointed to Xiao Hua, who was casually holding the dagger as though it was a normal weapon. I am willing to sell it, but only under one condition, Xiao Hua said. You must also sell his monster cores at your place. Okay, I accept that condition. Senior Chang immediately accepted without even needing to think about it. Even if the Azure Phoenix auction house loses a bit of face or becomes a laughing stock for selling Spirit Apprentice level monster cores, the heaven-grade weapon will make up for it and more. Xiao Hua. Yuan smiled warmly after realizing her intentions. To think that she'd be willing to sell such a precious item just for him, he couldn't thank her enough. Are you sure, Xiao Hua? That's a precious item, right? You don't have to force yourself to sell it. I can sell the monster cores elsewhere, Yuan said to her. When Senior Chang heard Yuan's words, she felt the urge to beat him up and seal his mouth shut. It's only a heaven-grade weapon. Xiao Hua has many more of them. And Brother Yuan does not use daggers, so it would only continue collecting dust, Xiao Hua said, dumbfounding Yuan. How can one have so many rare items but no money at the same time? He wondered where she got all of these items from. A few moments later, Xiao Hua handed the Heavenly Frost Dagger and the 4 Spirit Apprentice level monster cores from Yuan to Senior Chang. If you steal anything, I will destroy this place. Xiao Hua gave Senior Chang a stern warning before following Na Ying, who was assigned to serve them to one of the VIP rooms. After they left, Senior Chang sighed a breath of relief. Even though she's a little girl, her attitude and presence are beyond normal, almost like that of an immortal's. Not to mention that she actually dared to take out a peak-quality heaven-grade weapon out in the open. Even idiots would not dare steal from her. Senior Chang felt the chills just thinking about her. Just as Senior Chang began walking, she noticed that Lian Rong was sitting on the floor with a dazed face. Use this chance and change that arrogant attitude of yours. Even if you are an inner disciple of the powerful Azure Phoenix sect, there are countless people in this world that you shouldn't offend. Yes, Senior. Lian Rong nodded. Anyway, hurry up and return to work. I'm not paying you guys to stand around and be depressed all day, said Senior Chong, before disappearing into the auction house. Meanwhile, Yuan and Xiao Hua just stepped into the VIP room, where there were several other individuals. Kids? The people there turned their attention to Yuan and Xiao Hua, seemingly curious about their identity. Who are these kids? I don't recognize them. I don't know them either. How could strangers enter this VIP room? They must have a shocking background that we are not aware of. I don't mean to brag, but I am familiar with every background that is capable of entering the VIP room, and even I don't know them. It seemed as though nobody in the VIP room recognized Yuan, but that was to be expected, as he does not belong to any background and arrived in this world only recently. Yuan, I did not expect to see you so soon again. Suddenly, a pretty young lady approached him. You are Xuan Wuhan? Yuan also did not expect to see her here, especially when they were together not too long ago. If I knew that you were coming here, we could have come here together, she said. Ha 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 ha. I did not plan on coming here at first. It's only a coincidence. Coincidence or not, we are together again. Come here and sit at my table. Yuan nodded and followed Xuan Wuhan to her table, where the old man from before and two unfamiliar, handsome young men sat. The young lady was right. To enter this room, his background is not so simple after all. The old man was surprised to see Yuan in the VIP room. Who are they? One of the young men asked after seeing Xuan Wuhan return with strangers. Friends I recently made, she said. The two handsome young men looked at Yuan with a pondering gaze. Which noble family are you from? I am Dubai from the Du family, said the handsome young man on the left. I am Duhai, his twin brother, said the one on the right. I am not from any family, Yuan casually responded as he sat down beside Xuan Wuhan. What? They all looked at him with a surprised expression. Then you must be a disciple of a powerful sect. Which sect do you belong to? I am also not a part of any sect. I'm a rogue cultivator, he said. Once Yuan said those words, the entire room went silent, as everyone in the room was paying attention to him, trying to figure out his identity. A rogue cultivator, you say? Ha 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 ha, what a good joke. A few moments later, the entire room burst with laughter. There's no way some rogue cultivator would have the privilege to enter this VIP room. Ha ha ha, he must really want to keep his background hidden. Too bad that only makes me more intrigued. It was Yuan's turn to be speechless. He did not understand why they were laughing at him or why they couldn't believe his words. But regardless of the reason, since they don't believe him, there was nothing he could do. And it's not as though he cared whether they believed him or not. Just ignore them, Yuan, Xuan Wuhan said to him. And just as she said those words, the lights in the room suddenly dimmed. The auction is finally starting, said Xuan Wuhan, as she pointed to the large stage that was right below their VIP room. Hello, esteemed guests. Welcome to the Azure Phoenix Auction House. I will be your main host today, Ching Ching. A beautiful young lady appeared on the stage with a dazzling smile and a cheerful attitude, brightening the atmosphere despite the dimmed lights. Before we begin, allow me to remind you of the rules for this auction house. First of all, once you have made a bid on an item, it will be final and you cannot reclaim the offer. Rule number 2, you are not allowed to pressure others with your background. This is an auction house, not the streets. After one warning, we will ask you to leave. And lastly, if you bid on an item and cannot afford it in the end, we will take whatever you have on hand until it's enough to pay the debt. If the debt is not paid, we will hold you until someone pays the debt. After announcing the rules, Ching Ching clapped her hands. A moment later, another beautiful lady appeared on the stage while pushing a cart covered by a thick cloth. Then without further ado, let me reveal the first item for today's auction, an Earth-grade medium-quality chest plate made of silver metal, allowing it to have nearly no weight while retaining high defenses. As long as this armor is on your body, all damage dealt by those below the Spirit Master realm will be reduced in half. As King Ching announced the item, her assistant removed the cover on the cart and revealed the silver armor under it. 50% damage reduction as long as their cultivation is below the Spirit Master level? How powerful! Yuan gazed at the armor with wide eyes. If he had such equipment, it would greatly increase his survivability in this world. Xiao Hua noticed his desire for the armor in Yuan's eyes and spoke, "Brother Yuan, although it may sound powerful, it'll only work if your opponent is below the Spirit Master level. With your talent, you'll be fighting Spirit Masters in no time. What's more, with Xiao Hua here, nobody will be able to hurt you, even if they are a Spirit Grandmaster." Yuan chuckled at her confident face and nodded. Meanwhile, the Du brothers sitting on the other side of his table were glaring at the silver armor with drooling eyes. "This is a must-have item. As long as we have this, we will be near invincible within the inner court." They laughed loudly. "Relying on treasures too much will affect your cultivation. Do buy, do high." Xuan Wuhan reminded them after seeing their excited expressions. However, as though they did not hear her, the Du brothers continued to stare at the armor. "The starting price for the armor will be 100,000 gold, Ching Ching announced. 100,000 gold. Yuan could feel his heart skip a beat after hearing the price, and it was just the starting price. It's no wonder why they refused to accept his monster cores that would only sell for a measly 100 gold. 110,000 gold! The Du brother immediately bid. 115,000 gold. 118,000 gold. 120,000 gold. 130,000 gold. The price went up by thousands with each call, and within minutes it raised to 280,000 gold. 280,000 gold. Even if there are players here, I doubt they'll have enough money to buy it. Yuan thought to himself. 280,000 gold going once, going twice, and sold. Yes, we got it. The Du brothers hugged each other with joy after winning the bid. Their family must be filthy rich, Yuan thought as he watched them celebrate. We will keep the item for now. After the auction ends, the winners may retrieve the item after paying the debt, said Ching Ching as she called for another assistant to go onto the stage. The next item will be a spirit-grade martial technique, Fire Lotus Palm Strike. The ability packs devastating power and will also burn everything it touches. The starting price will be 10,000 gold. A single spirit-grade skill costs over 10,000 gold. Yuan was shocked. Since all of his skills were either self-taught or taught by Xiao Hua, they were all free. He simply cannot imagine paying for an earth-grade skill, much less a skill at the divine grade. How much would a divine-grade skill normally cost? Yuan decided to ask Xuan Wuhan. Xuan Wuhan looked at him with wide eyes. Divine grade? You cannot buy that kind of technique even with all of the money in this world. Ha 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 ha. She laughed afterward. Yuan's jaw dropped to the ground after hearing her words. Cannot be bought with money. To think Xiao Hua would be so generous that she'd give out something like that for free. He suddenly felt the urge to wrap his arms around her and embrace her tightly. A few minutes later, the Fire Lotus Palm Strike was bought by an old man in the VIP room for 48,000 gold. The third item is a Tier 3 pill, Soul Strengthening Pill with 80% purity, crafted by the renowned 3-star alchemist Bai Ming. Xiao Hua, what's an alchemist? Do they turn things into gold? Yuan asked her. Alchemists are medical experts that craft special medicine with their cultivation, usually in the form of pills. Every pill has a different effect. Some can increase your strength while others can boost your stamina. Pills are usually expensive, so it's not an exaggeration to say they make gold. I see. Yuan nodded as though he understood something. Soul-strengthening pill. It has a mind-calming effect, allowing you to achieve greater results during cultivation. I want this. Xuan Wuhan gripped her hands into a fist. Senior Bai personally crafted 15 soul-strengthening pill for today's auction, enough to fill 3 pill bottles, and we will be selling them separately. For the first bottle that contains 5 soul-strengthening pills, the starting price will be 5,000 gold. Yuan's eyes nearly popped out of its sockets after hearing the price. Mother of fortune, 1,000 gold for one tiny pill. If I want to earn money quickly, it seems like becoming an alchemist is the only way. Yuan's interest in alchemy was piqued. He thought that if one day he has a chance to learn alchemy, he would definitely give it a try. However, Xiao Hua also noticed this and quickly lowered his expectations of being an alchemist by saying, although pills can be sold for good money, it's also incredibly hard to craft pills, and they usually end in failures unless you are a very skilled alchemist. Even a single Tier 1 pill will require hours of effort to complete, not to mention that the supplies needed to craft the pill will also cost a lot of money. What's more, even geniuses will need to train for years before they can become a proper alchemist. If Brother Yuan wants to become an alchemist, you will need a lot of money, talent, and patience. Yuan's hype for alchemists immediately dipped after hearing Xiao Hua's encouraging words. Life is hard even inside a game, huh? He sighed inwardly. 6,000 gold! Xuan Wuhan immediately bid for the soul-strengthening pill once the auction began. 6,100 gold. 6,200 gold. A few minutes later, Xuan Wuhan managed to secure the soul-strengthening pill for 7,500 gold. Yes, now I will be able to break through to the 3rd-level Spirit Warrior realm. She made a victorious fist. However, Xuan Wuhan was not satisfied with just a single bottle, so she proceeded to bid on the other 2 bottles. After a few more minutes, 2 more bottles of soul-strengthening pills were handed to Xuan Wuhan, and she ended up paying 25,000 gold for all 3 bottles. Hey, Yuan! Xuan Wuhan suddenly called for him. What's the matter? He turned to look at her. Xuan Wuhan smiled and opened one of the pill bottles to retrieve a soul-strengthening pill. Here you go. It's not much, but I hope we can be friends for years to come, she said while handing it to him. Yuan accepted the pill with slightly widened eyes. Thank you, he said with a smile on his face. When Yuan held the soul-strengthening pill in his hands, the system automatically analyzed it for him. Soul-strengthening pill. Tier 3. Purity 82%. Effects. Permanently increases soul strength by 1,000. Description. A spiritual pill concocted by Bai Ming. Limit. 3. It increases my soul strength permanently, and by 1,000, Yuan exclaimed. Xiao Hua then spoke. Most pills have a limitation on how many you can consume before it no longer benefits your body. These soul-strengthening pills can only be eaten 3 times before it stops benefiting your body. With that being said, even if it won't improve your body, it still has other benefits such as calming your mind during cultivation, hence why she bought so many of them. I see. Yuan nodded. Hey, why don't you give us one of those pills too, Lady Xuan? Aren't we also friends? The Du brothers asked her after seeing her give one to Yuan. If you wanted some, why didn't you even try to buy it? Xuan Wuhan asked them. That's because you were very eager to have them, so we didn't fight for them with you, said Du Hai with a cheeky smile. Are you saying that I only won because you allowed me to win? Xuan Wuhan narrowed her eyes at him. Du Hai's cheeky smile quickly became an apologetic one and said, That wasn't my intention. Then forget it. After Xuan Wuhan turned her eyes away from him, Duhai looked at Yuan with narrowed eyes, almost like he blamed Yuan for being responsible for the situation. Sometime later, after 10 more items were auctioned, Yuan's monster cores finally made its appearance. For our next item, we have a few monster cores. King Qing sounded less confident and somewhat embarrassed by her own words. Monster cores? Could it belong to a beast that was at the spirit master level? The people were slightly surprised by the appearance of monster cores, as they are rarely sold in auction houses. They are spirit apprentice level monster cores, said King Qing with a weird tone. Spirit apprentice monster cores? Did the auction house mess up? How could they sell such trash here? There must have been a mistake. I cannot imagine the Azure Phoenix auction house purposefully selling trash. The Azure Phoenix auction house does not make mistakes. Although I don't know the reason, these monster cores were approved by Senior Chang herself, said King Qing, and she continued, the starting price for all 4 of these monster cores will be 500 spirit stones. However, nobody made a bid even after many minutes. It was an unprecedented event for the Azure Phoenix auction house. Just take those trash away from our sites. Are you mocking us with them? Nobody wants it, Dubai shouted loudly. That's right. What kind of joke is this? Even if you are the Azure Phoenix auction house, there is a limit. Following Dubai, other guests also began complaining. To sell something worth so little in this high-end auction house with treasures worth tens of thousands of gold was akin to selling street meat in a luxurious restaurant. The guests were feeling as though they were being mocked by the auction house. What should I do? Senior Chang told me to sell these even if we have to lose face, Ching Ching cried inwardly. Meanwhile, in the VIP room, Yuan was slightly trembling from anger. Even though the complaints were directed at the auction house and King Qing, he felt as though they were all directed at him, who wanted to sell these monster cores. Xuan Wuhan noticed the irritated expression on Yuan's face and wondered if the monster cores belonged to him. After all, he gave her one of them at the city's entrance. It's just a few hundred golds. If these monster cores really belong to him, it'll definitely benefit our relationship, and he might even owe me for giving him face. It might also be another one of his tests. Thus, Xuan Wuhan spoke the next moment. I will bid 600 gold for these monster cores. Lady Xuan, why would you bid for the monster cores? They are just trash. Don't waste your money on them. If you want, I can give you some at the Spirit Warrior level for free as a gift, Duhai said to her. Shut up. Do I need your permission if I want to buy something? I just happen to need these monster cores, so I am buying them, she coldly snorted. Yuan looked at her with wide eyes. Not only did she give me a soul-strengthening pill worth hundreds of gold, but she's also buying my monster cores. I will definitely thank her properly in the future, he thought to himself with a warm smile on his face. Would you like to pay for the monster cores now? An assistant from the auction house asked Xuan Wuhan after she easily won the bid due to a lack of competitors. Xuan Wuhan retrieved 600 gold and handed it to the assistant. I want it now, she said. Understood. The assistant accepted the money and returned a few minutes later with the monster cores. Meanwhile, on the stage, a new item was already being auctioned. For the next item, we have this piece of crystal that is of unknown origin. Although we cannot tell you the purpose of its existence, it has a large amount of ki flowing within like a monster core. In fact, if it was a monster core, it would be comparable to one at the Spirit Grandmaster level. King Qing showed them the cobble-sized piece of crystal to the guests, comparable to a Spirit Grandmaster monster core. The people were shocked, as monsters at the Spirit Grandmaster level were exceedingly rare and terrifying, and they have the power to wipe out a large city like this Spirit City with ease. In fact, The last time a spirit grandmaster monster appeared in this world was 1,000 years ago, killing millions of people and nearly destroying the world if not for the spirit grandmasters that sacrificed their own lives to kill it. When Xiao Hua saw the cobble-sized crystal, her eyes slightly widened. "Brother Yuan, that's a spirit crystal." Xiao Hua's voice suddenly resounded in his head. "Spirit crystal? Like the ancient spirit jade I have?" he asked. "No, it's not real spirit jade. Real spirit jade, even at the lowest quality, would have more ki. And even though it's not comparable to spirit jade, it'll still provide a big boost to your cultivation. It can also be used as a currency in the upper realms." "I wonder how much ki I would get from consuming it," he pondered. "Brother Yuan, you should bid for it," Xiao Hua suddenly said. "What? But I don't have any money." "We may have no money now, but we will have plenty once we sell the Heavenly Frost Dagger. It'll be more than enough to buy something like this spirit crystal, and the people here seem to be unaware of its true value." Yuan pondered for a moment and asked, "Are you sure? It's still your money." Even if Xiao Hua allowed him to use the money from selling the Heavenly Frost Dagger, Yuan was not shameless enough to accept it. In fact, if he accepts it despite everything that she's already given him, it'll make him feel guilty instead. "Buy it, Brother Yuan." Xiao Hua nodded with a resolute face. "Okay, if you say so. I must get this piece of crystal that is overflowing with ki. If I can cultivate the ki inside, I might even break through and become a spirit master in no time." Zhuan Wuhan's eyes glittered with excitement. There's no way something that contains so much ki is not a treasure. It must be a treasure with a powerful ability. Not just Xuan Wuhan, but Du Brothers and the others in the VIP room were also trembling in excitement. "Since we do not know its true value, we will let the guests decide. The auction begins now," King Qing announced loudly. 10,000 gold, 30,000 gold, 100,000 gold. The people immediately began bidding, and the price fluctuated quickly. Within mere minutes, the price for the spirit crystal reached 500,000 gold. "Xiao Hua, it's already at 500,000 gold. Are we still going to buy it?" Yuan asked her. Xiao Hua did not hesitate for a second and nodded. 500,100 gold. Yuan made a bid for the first time in this auction and in his life. This brat, he's not a simple one as expected. The people in the VIP room glanced at Yuan with the corner of their eyes. "You want to buy something when I am here? Then you will have to ask me for permission first." Du Hai coldly sneered in his heart and raised his hand. 510,000 gold. 510,100 gold. Yuan calmly responded. Du Hai gnashed his teeth and spoke loudly. "Are you purposely trying to provoke me by adding so little every time?" Yuan raised an eyebrow at Du Hai's words, as he truly didn't understand why Du Hai would be upset about that. "Is there something wrong with that?" Du Hai trembled in anger at Yuan's response, thinking that he was being mocked. 520,000 gold. This is how you bid in an auction. What is the point in adding so little? 520,100 gold. What if I add too much and waste money? I'd rather play it safe." Yuan innocently shook his head. After all, it was not his money that he's using to bid. Xuan Wuhan chuckled after hearing Yuan's words, which only fueled Du Hai's rage even further. "Good. Since you want to play that game, then I will also play. 520,200 gold, 520,300 gold, 520,400 gold, 520,500 gold." After a few minutes of bidding back and forth, Du Hai was finally unable to endure it and burst with anger. "You motherfucker! How dare you play with me like this?" Seeing Du Hai lose control of his temper and preparing to strike Yuan, Nan Ning, who had been standing in the background in silence, stood forward and spoke. "Esteemed guest, please behave yourself. If you continue any further, we will have to ask you to leave." "Duhai, sit back down." Dubai grabbed Duhai's robes with a frown. "Che!" Duhai coldly snorted and returned to his seat. However, his narrowed gaze remained on Yuan even after many moments later. "We cannot afford to offend the Azure Phoenix sect and give up on this treasure. Our money won't last till the end if you spend so much at once. If you want to deal with him, we can do it after the auction," Dubai whispered in Duhai's ears afterward. "Yuan, the Du brothers are unforgiving people. They will surely try to cause trouble for you afterward. I will speak to them later." Xuan Wuhan whispered in Yuan's ears when she noticed their suspicious gazes. "Thank you for the warning." Yuan nodded. Although he was not afraid of them, he'd rather not have to deal with them. A few minutes later, Yuan won the bid with 550,000 gold. "Esteemed guest, would you like to pay for the item now, or would you like to pay for it afterward?" Nanning asked him with a polite tone and a respectful demeanor. "You can subtract it from that item afterward," Xiaohua said to her. "I understand." Nanning nodded and walked away. Xuan Wuhan raised her eyebrows at Xiaohua's words and she pondered. That item? Did they put something else besides the monster cores up for auction? After selling the spirit crystal, a few more items were sold. Before we start the auction for the final item we have today, allow me to introduce the owner of this auction house, Senior Chang, Ching Ching suddenly said, dumbfounding the people there. "Madam Chang will be making an appearance today? How rare," the people thought. A few moments later, an old lady appeared on the stage with a wooden box in her hands. "Thank you all for coming to my auction house today. Since the last item we have for today is a little bit special, I will be conducting the final auction." Senior Chang spoke in a low voice, yet her voice echoed in every corner of the room. After saying those words, Senior Chang opened the wooden box and revealed the beautiful dagger resting inside. That aura! It's a heaven-grade treasure. Without even needing Senior Chang to introduce the Heavenly Frost dagger, the people there were already able to tell what kind of treasure it was from the profound aura that was shrouding the blue dagger. "It's really a heaven-grade treasure. Ha ha ha. I have lucked out by coming here today. Even though I won't be able to afford it, I am already satisfied to witness something so valuable with my own eyes." The crowd went into an uproar after the appearance of the Heavenly Frost dagger, as the last time something this precious appeared in the public was 100 years ago. "Elder Jia, we must buy this heaven-grade treasure at all cost," Xuan Wuhuan said to the old man beside her with a serious expression. "I agree with the young lady. Although it might get expensive very fast, heaven-grade treasures do not appear very often in this world, and this one appears to be of great quality too. Duhai, this treasure. Of course, we are going to try and bid for it. Even though we might not win, we cannot simply sit here and do nothing while there is such a treasure before us." Duhai spoke with a regrettable face. Although the Du family has decent wealth compared to the other esteemed guests in the VIP room, their wealth is nothing significant. However, even if there's the slightest chance they could buy the heaven-grade treasure, they will surely try. The VIP room quickly became chaotic, and everybody there looked at the Heavenly Frost dagger with lustful eyes. Even if they have to use all of their money and replace the food on their dinner table with water for the next 10 years, they felt that it would all be worth it if they obtained the treasure. Once the anticipation within the auction house was at its maximum, Madam Chang spread her arms and spoke with a wide smile. "Then without further ado, let the bidding for this peak-quality Heavenly Frost dagger begin at 10 million gold." Despite the outrageous price, the people at the auction house began bidding like animals. 11 million gold, 11.5 million gold, 13 million gold. Within minutes, The minimum price for the Heavenly Frost dagger increased to 21 million gold. 21 million gold! Yuan listened to the biddings with a dazed face, seemingly in disbelief. He cannot even begin to imagine what he could do with that much wealth. 25 million gold! Xuan Wuhuan suddenly shouted. The sudden high bid by Xuan Wuhuan slowed the bidding pace briefly, but after a few moments it returned to normal. When the bidding reached 30 million gold, the pace finally slowed down permanently, as only very few individuals there could afford to bring out so much money. 30.5 million. Of course, Zhuan Wuhan, whose family belonged to the business circle, was one of these rich individuals. 31 million. 31.5 million. After a few more minutes of bidding from the same three people, a new voice suddenly resounded. 40 million gold. The voice was profoundly calm, causing everybody in the VIP room to turn to look at the person who just spoke. However, that person had not been in the VIP room since the beginning, and the people there wondered when this person arrived. That's Qi Jiguang from Heaven and Earth Palace. What's he doing in this place? Someone there exclaimed after realizing his identity. What? The Heaven and Earth Palace? Although most people there were unfamiliar with the name Qi Jiguang, they all gasped in shock after hearing the name Heaven and Earth Palace. That man is at the peak of the Spirit Grandmaster. He's considered as a peak expert in the lower heavens. Xiao Hua mumbled to Yuan, who seemed to be dazed by the profound aura surrounding this Qi Jiguang. I wonder what it would be like to fight someone as powerful as him, Yuan said in a low voice. Xiao Hua looked at him with raised eyebrows. As expected of a battle junkie, in this entire room, you are probably the only one thinking such a thing, Brother Yuan. But at your current cultivation, you won't even last a second against a single finger from him. You'll die instantly. When Qi Jiguang noticed the two of them looking at him, he also looked back. Although there was nothing out of the ordinary about Yuan, he could sense an invisible yet formidable aura coming from Xiao Hua. That little girl. I cannot see her cultivation base, but she's without a doubt an expert like me, Qi Jiguang thought to himself. While her presence piqued his interest, he did not want to involve himself with another expert at his level without any good reason, as that might lead to unnecessary confrontation. Many moments have passed since Qi Jiguang bid 40 million gold for the Heavenly Frost dagger without anyone else trying to outbid him. Damn it! Why did someone like him have to appear here today? Xuan Wuhuan cried inwardly. While she had the ability to continue bidding, she did not want to fight against someone from the Heaven and Earth Palace and accidentally offend him, as that would be devastating for her family and its business. Since there doesn't seem to be any more bidders, the bid for this heaven-grade treasure shall come to an end. Congratulations to the esteemed guest for winning this exquisite treasure. Madame Chang clapped with smiles all over her face, as she just earned 4 million gold from this transaction alone. After the auction ended, Xuan Wuhan said to Yuan, "If you ever need anything, come find me at Spring City. You can show anyone the medallion I gave you and they will lead you to me. I hope to see you again later, Yuan." The Du brothers glanced at Yuan with narrowed eyes for a moment before leaving the place. Sometime later, Na Ying approached them after the auction ended and said, "Esteemed guests, please follow me to claim your sales." Yuan nodded and proceeded to follow her to a private room at the top of the auction house. "Madame Chang will be here in a few moments with your earnings. Please relax in the meantime," Na Ying said to them as she poured them a cup of spiritual tea. "You have gained the following effect from consuming Phoenix Blossom tea. Increased Qi absorption rate by 10% for 12 hours. Soul strength plus 500 permanently." Yuan gained some stats after drinking the tea. "What wonderful tea!" Yuan mumbled after sipping the tea, feeling a little bit stronger after just a single sip. "I'm glad you like this tea, esteemed guest. It's called the Phoenix Blossom Tea, a spiritual tea made by the Azure Phoenix sect. Usually, only elders within the sect are allowed to enjoy this tea, but Madame Chang specifically wanted you to try it," Na Ying said to him with a smile. A few minutes later, Madame Chang entered the room and bowed to them. "Thank you for being patient with this one, esteemed guests. I've just finished organizing your sales." She then placed a ring made of jade and a small red pouch on the table before them and continued, "I have already deducted the auction house's 10% share and your purchase worth 550,000 gold from the income, so there are 35,450,560 gold, and your purchase in the spatial ring from the heaven-grade treasure, and 540 gold in the storage pouch from the monster cores. And you can keep the spatial ring and the storage pouch as well. Although it's nothing significant when compared to the heaven-grade treasure, please consider it as a small gift from the Azure Phoenix sect." Spatial ring. Grade. Earth. Mental strength. Required. 5,000. Description. A mythical ring that contains its own space, allowing you to store things inside and retrieve them with a thought. Storage pouch. Grade. Spirit. Mental strength. Required. 500. Description. A pouch that contains its own space. Although there's not much room inside, you can fit a few watermelons inside. Yuan picked up the jade ring and the red pouch, and a notification appeared before him. 35,450,560 gold has been received. You have unlocked the Wealth Leaderboards. Congratulations. You have reached first place in Wealth Leaderboards, becoming the wealthiest player in Cultivation Online. Congratulations. You have obtained the unique title Rich Young Master. Fame plus 100. When Yuan saw that he'd become the richest player in Cultivation Online, he didn't express any surprise. In fact, it would be more surprising if he wasn't in the first place. "Xiao Hua, here, take this." After receiving the spatial ring, he handed it to Xiao Hua, who looked at him with a puzzled face. "Why are you giving it to me, Brother Yuan? It's your money." However, Yuan shook his head and said, "To begin with, it was your treasure that was sold, and I will feel bad for accepting this much money when it doesn't even belong to me." Xiao Hua belongs to Brother Yuan. Everything in Xiao Hua's possession is also Brother Yuan's possession, so it's not weird. I know, but it still doesn't feel right with me, getting so much wealth when I didn't do anything to deserve it. Keep it. But when we really need that money, we can use it. Yuan was adamant about not accepting the 35 million gold. He felt that it was too much money for him at his current level, and that it would take away all of the fun in the game if he could buy whatever he wanted with such ease. In fact, he even feels slightly guilty for having an overpowered companion such as Xiao Hua by his side. However, obtaining a massive amount of resources without working for it and earning these resources by himself are two entirely different matters. Furthermore, as someone who could only rely on others to help him survive for almost his entire life, he did not want to rely too much on Xiao Hua, who resembled his real younger sister, hence why he refused the gold. Seeing the stubbornness in Yuan's eyes, Xiao Hua ultimately nodded her head and accepted the spatial ring and all of the money inside. However, after taking the spatial ring, she transferred the money inside the spatial ring to her own storage pouch before handing the spatial ring back to Yuan. "Brother Yuan, I will take the money, but you should keep the spatial ring. It'll be very convenient for you since you can carry many things with you without the burden of carrying its weight that way." Yuan nodded and accepted the spatial ring without much thought, completely oblivious to the fact that the spatial ring itself was valued at a few 100,000 golds. Meanwhile, outside of the Azure Phoenix Action House, A large notification was hanging above the clouds with countless eyes staring at it. Player Yuan has become to first player to unlock the wealth leaderboards by accumulating over 1 million gold. Somebody has already earned over 1 million gold. How is that even possible? Look, it's that alleged cheater, Yuan. Holy shit, if you convert that amount of gold into real-life money, that's over $10 million at the market's current rates. Since Cultivation Online is a video game, a very popular one at that, there would obviously be people using the game to make profits in real life by trading in-game currencies for real-life currencies, and at the current state of the game, a single gold coin was worth around $10 in real life. This type of business is usually called real-world trading, RWT for short, and is against the terms of service for most online games out there. However, despite being against the terms of services, there are many people who would rather go out of their way to use such services to strengthen themselves in-game than to waste time and effort to earn them fairly. Furthermore, this type of business is not limited to only in-game gold, as people buy in-game treasures and resources with real money too. With all that being said, RWT is not against Cultivation Online's terms of services, as such terms never existed in the first place, so there are already many players using their real-life money to buy Cultivation Online gold and vice versa. If Yuan were to convert all of his in-game gold to real-life currency, he'd have over $350 million right now. But of course, Yuan is oblivious to such a business market. Thus, such thoughts never crossed his mind. If you ever need to sell anything to our Azure Phoenix auction house, please come by again. Madam Chang handed them a badge with the auction house's name on it. You have obtained Azure Phoenix Auction House Diamond Pass. As long as you have that pass, you can enter any auction house in this world that is owned by the Azure Phoenix sect. Thank you. After accepting the pass, Yuan and Xiao Hua left the auction house. Once Yuan and Xiao Hua left the auction house, they wandered around the city aimlessly. What should we do now, Xiao Hua? Now that we have enough money, maybe we should better gear ourselves for the future. However, Xiao Hua merely tilted her head in a puzzled manner and spoke, "But Xiao Hua has plenty of treasures you can use." Yuan showed a bittersweet smile and said, "While that is true, I cannot rely on you for everything. I want to work hard and earn my own equipment too." Xiao Hua remained puzzled, and she asked, "Xiao Hua has noticed this for a bit now, but why does Brother Yuan want to work so hard? If it were someone else in your shoes, they would surely take advantage of the situation and not do so much work." Yuan chuckled after hearing her words and said, "Although it may not seem like it, I have lived the majority of my life as a cripple, where I cannot even use the bathroom without help from someone else. I hate the feeling of being so powerless and useless, and despite breathing, I never felt alive. But now that I can finally use my useless body again, I want to enjoy life to the fullest and experience what it means to be alive." Brother Yuan, you must have lived a difficult life. Past tense? Yuan laughed in a dispirited tone. Even though I may appear fine now, I am actually still living that pointless life. But Brother Yuan is no longer a cripple. He's even a cultivation genius. Although Xiao Hua does not know his situation, she could feel a sense of loneliness and desperation within his tone. That may be true in this world, but once I log out, I will return to being a cripple in that dark and still world. Anyway, let's leave this depressing topic behind and enjoy ourselves with our newfound wealth," Yuan said as he continued walking around the city. Meanwhile, Xiao Hua silently stared at him with a pondering gaze, seemingly in deep thoughts. Maybe there's something Xiao Hua can do to relieve Brother Yuan's pain, she thought to herself. Sometime later they arrived at what appears to be an equipment shop. "Welcome to the Dragon Armory. the middle-aged man behind the counter said to them after noticing their presence. "We have all sorts of spirit-grade weapons and armor. If you are looking for something specific, just let me know." "I will," Yuan said as he began looking around. Bone sword. Grade. Spirit. Quality. Medium. Physical strength required. 300. Mental strength required. 600. Sharpness. 300. Description: a sword made from the bones from a spiritual skeleton. Price: 30,000 gold. Fiery lizard scale armor. Grade: Spirit. Quality: high. Physical strength required: 500. Mental strength required: 250. Physical defense: 5,000. Description: crafted with highly durable scales from a fiery lizard. Price: 80,000 gold. Good Lord, the equipment here is so expensive. Yuan's eyes widened when he saw the price for these spirit-grade weapons. It made the 540 gold he'd earned completely insignificant. "It's expensive, right?" Xiao Hua could read his expression and said with a smile. "Unless you are from a noble family or have the backing of a powerful sect, nobody would come to these places to look for equipment. Why didn't you tell me before we walked in here? Now I feel like a beggar walking into a jewelry store." Yuan sighed. "Let's leave and get something to eat instead." When the middle-aged man saw that they were leaving after looking at just 2 items, he sucked his teeth in disdain. "Che! To think I'd wasted my breath greeting these poor bastards." Hearing such words, Yuan stopped walking and turned around to look at the middle-aged man with a frown. "What? Are you going to hit me for speaking the truth?" The middle-aged man remained nonchalant and even continued to insult him. "This store is owned by the Earth Dragon sect. Hit me if you dare." Yuan's eyebrows twitched at the irritating tone coming from the middle-aged man, but he had nothing to say as he was truly poor. Furthermore, he didn't want to cause unnecessary trouble inside a shop owned by an NPC because who knows what the NPC might do. However, Xiao Hua was not as kind as Yuan, and she despised people looking down on Yuan, her beloved master. A moment later, she retrieved her storage ring and pulled out 2 peak-quality heaven-grade treasure, one in each of her small hands. When the middle-aged man realized that she was holding 2 heaven-grade weapons and was even treating them as though they are mere toys, his eyes rolled back from shock, and he collapsed the next moment. "That's what you get for bullying Brother Yuan." Xiao Hua sneered inwardly before putting away the heaven-grade weapons and leaving the store with a satisfied expression on her cute face. Once they left the store, Yuan and Xiao Hua went to a nearby restaurant, where they proceeded to fill their stomach with delicious food. "Oh my God, this food is crazy delicious. I can't believe how real it tastes inside a game." As though he'd turned into a starving beast, Yuan stuffed food into his mouth and down his throat, and both of his hands were occupied with food at all times. Meanwhile, Xiao Hua watched him eat like an animal with her jaw hanging. This is the first time she has seen anyone eating so frantically. It was almost as though he'd never eaten anything before today. "The food isn't going anywhere, Brother Yuan. If you don't eat slowly, you might choke to death," she said to him. "I can't help it. My hands are moving by themselves. After all, I have eaten nothing but soup for the last few years," Yuan said in a stuffed voice, as he continued to mercilessly shove food into his mouth with tears flowing down his fat cheeks. Xiao Hua merely shook her head before she began to eat her own plate of food with elegance. After spending nearly 3 hours stuffing his face with food in the restaurant, Yuan was finally satisfied with his stomach, which was fully bloated at this moment, making him appear fatter than normal. Unbelievable. Brother Yuan's stomach is a true mystery. Not only can you consume monster cores and feel perfectly fine, but you can also eat enough food to feed 10 whole families. Xiao Hua stared at him with wide eyes. Ha 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 ha. I don't usually eat so much, but for some season, when I swallow the food, it feels as though the food disappears before it even reaches my stomach, Yuan said, and my qi has increased significantly too. After consuming so much food, his qi experience has increased by 1 million, comparable to the jade frog's monster core. That's because of the food Brother Yuan ate. It's not ordinary food, but spiritual food, which is cooked from monsters and contains spiritual energy. Is that why it also tasted so good? Man, I should eat more of these so-called spiritual foods, Yuan said as he rubbed his stomach. However, when the bill appeared sometime later, Yuan immediately regretted eating so much. 500 gold coins? That's nearly everything I have. Why the hell is it this expensive? Did they miscalculate the bill? Yuan exclaimed with a terrified expression. Brother Yuan, did you order the food without looking at the prices? Spiritual food is considered luxury food. Of course it would be expensive. And you ate so much of it, Xiao Hua said to him. Yuan sighed and spoke. If it's like this, I'd rather hunt and cook my own food. That's an option too. Xiao Hua nodded. After all, it's just cooked monster meat. Then it's decided. In order to save money, I shall learn how to cook spiritual food. And he continued, by the way, are there any techniques that teach you how to cook? Xiao Hua nodded and said, it'll cost you a few gold coins, but you can find these kinds of techniques in any cultivator market. Great. Then let's go shopping again after this. After paying the massive restaurant bill that depleted almost everything he's earned from selling the monster cores, Yuan and Xiao Hua returned to strolling in the streets. Sometime later, they approached a store with a large sign that read Cultivator Essentials. Welcome to Cultivator Essentials. How may I assist you, young master? A pretty lady greeted him with a warm smile after noticing their presence. Hello? Do you sell cooking techniques in this place? Yuan asked her. Cooking techniques, huh? Give me a moment to check. The pretty lady then went to the back of the shop. A few minutes later, she returned with 3 books in her hand. We have 3 cooking techniques. Pick whichever is to your liking. Yuan looked at the 3 techniques before him. 1,000 knife techniques, heavenly fire control, Senior Wu's recipes. Yuan made a weird expression after reading the title of these 3 books. Are they really cooking techniques? They look more like fighting techniques. And the last one, it's only a recipe book, right? The pretty lady behind the counter chuckled and she said, I can assure you that they are cooking techniques. If you aren't convinced, I can let you read a few pages for yourself. Really? Then, excuse me. Yuan picked up the techniques and began reading them one at a time. A few minutes later, a notification appeared. You have learned 1,000 knife technique. 1,000 knife technique. Rank, mortal. Mastery level, 1. Description, consumes 100 qi. Must wield a knife or dagger to activate, a common knife technique for chefs around the world. You have learned heavenly fire control. Heavenly fire control. Rank, mortal. Mastery level, 1. Description, consumes 10 qi per second. Allows you to control and adjust temperatures of regular fire with your spiritual energy. You have read Senior Wu's recipes. Your cooking knowledge has increased significantly. You have learned cooking skill. Cooking skill. Mastery level, 1. You have learned new cooking recipes. You can now cook tier 1 spiritual food. Yuan did not mean to learn the techniques without paying, and he turned to look at the pretty lady with a worried face, but she appeared to be oblivious of what just happened. How much are these techniques again? He asked her with a shaky voice. 10 gold coins each, she quickly responded with a bright smile. Not wanting to feel like he'd just committed a robbery, Yuan decided to pay for these techniques even if it will cost him all of his remaining money. I will buy them, he said in a sighing voice before taking out 30 gold coins and placing it on the counter. Thank you very much for your purchase, young master. The pretty lady immediately accepted his money with her face full of smiles. After buying the 3 cooking techniques, Yuan and Xiao Hua left the shop. I only have 10 gold coins left. Yuan sighed deeply after taking a look into his empty wallet. Should Xiao Hua give you some money? After all, she made Brother Yuan pay for her own share of food in the restaurant. Xiao Hua said to him after seeing his saddened face. No, it's fine. You have already done enough for me, and it's about time for me to start helping you, even if it's as small as paying for your food, Yuan said. And if I really need money, I can just farm some more monster cores and sell them again. Don't mention it, Brother Yuan. It's only natural for Xiao Hua to assist you as your servant. It's her responsibility after all. Yuan showed a gentle smile on his face and said, Thank you, Xiao Hua, but instead of a servant, you are like a little sister to me. Xiao Hua, Brother Yuan's little sister? Really? She looked at him with sparkly eyes. That's right. Yuan nodded. That's why you should stop calling yourself my servant. Xiao Hua quickly nodded with a blissful smile on her face. Okay, then Xiao Hua will be Brother Yuan's little sister starting now. Xiao Hua, it's about time for me to log off for dinner. I will be back later. Yuan said to her some time after leaving the cultivator shop. Where will you go during my absence? He then asked her. Xiao Hua pointed to the necklace around his neck, and she said, You can call Xiao Hua using the necklace whenever you are back. After saying those words, Xiao Hua's body began glowing before being absorbed into the necklace. What a profound necklace, Yuan mumbled to himself before logging off. After logging off the game, Yuan patiently waited for Yu Ru to bring him dinner, and he felt as though time had stopped. Unlike the colorful world in the game, the real world was pitch black, almost like he was living in the void, and his body felt non-existent. If only I could live inside Cultivation Online forever, Yuan sighed inwardly. After familiarizing himself with the world inside the game, his perception of the real world became even worse, and it felt even more lonely than usual. Inside the game, whether it be the pedestrians or just the noises nature made, it was always lively. However, whenever he returned to his own room, the only thing he could hear was the sound of his own heart beating and very rarely subtle noises from outside his room, a world he hasn't stepped foot in for many years. After waiting around for a few minutes that felt like hours, he could finally hear footsteps approaching his bed. However, he could immediately tell that it was not Yu Ru, as these footsteps were too heavy to be Yu Ru's, so it was someone else in his room. Who's there? Yuan asked in a hoarse voice. Young master, the young lady is currently busy with the masters, so I will be taking care of you for today. A voice belonging to a middle-aged woman responded. For today's dinner, we have beef soup with... It's fine, Yuan suddenly interrupted. I am not hungry today. Even if you say that, I have a job to do. The person sighed in a troubled tone. I won't repeat myself. Silence filled the room, and a moment later the middle-aged woman spoke. I understand. Please rest well, young master. The door closed a few seconds later, and Yuan could barely hear the person who just left coldly snorting in disdain. With that useless body, it's a miracle that he hasn't been tossed out of this house already. I can still hear you, you know. Yuan smiled bitterly. Since the only functioning part of his body were his mouth and ears, he has to rely on his hearing more than normal people, allowing him to hear things people normally wouldn't be able to. Perhaps my voice, even my ability to hear, might abandon me in the future, just like the rest of my body had. Sometime later, Yuan returned to Cultivation Online. However, He did not immediately call for Xiao Hua, as he had spent a few minutes silently staring at this colorful world. What am I doing? I don't have the time to be depressed. Every second I spend idling around is a second lost in this beautiful world. I may be useless and crippled in the real world, but I am not like that in this world. After calming down, Yuan summoned Xiao Hua using the necklace. You're back already, Brother Yuan? She looked at him with a pondering gaze. Despite Yuan's efforts to hide his emotions, Xiao Hua was able to notice the sadness within his eyes at a single glance. Are you okay, Brother Yuan? You seem a bit sad, she asked him. Don't worry about it. It's nothing I can't handle, and it'll quickly go away after I slay a few monsters, he said. Although she was worried, Xiao Hua did not want to force him. If Brother Yuan needs somebody to talk to, Xiao Hua will always be by your side. Thank you, Xiao Hua. I will keep that in mind. Yuan smiled. Xiao Hua nodded and she said, Then let's continue Brother Yuan's training. Although you won't gain much from monsters' cores at the Spirit Apprentice levels, you can still improve your sword techniques. And once you are more experienced in combat, we can start looking for monsters at the Spirit Warrior realm. Then what are we waiting for? Let's start training. Yuan and Xiao Hua began making their way out of the city. Sometime later, once they were a few miles away from the city, Xiao Hua spoke in a low voice. Brother Yuan, we are being followed. Could it be the Du brothers from the auction house? Xuan Wuhan did warn me that those two might be up to something before we separated. Xiao Hua nodded and said, Yes, but I can sense another person with them. He's a cultivator at the peak of the Spirit Master realm. Spirit Master? That's one realm above me. Yuan showed a worried expression, completely forgetting about the Spirit King walking beside him. Don't worry, Brother Yuan. If they try to do anything funny, Xiao Hua will take care of them. Let's just continue acting like we are unaware of their presence. Yuan nodded, and the two of them delved deeper into the wilderness. After walking for a few more miles, a familiar-sounding voice resounded. Stop right there, you little bastard. Yuan and Xiao Hua stopped walking and turned around, and standing a few meters behind them were the Du brothers and a tall, middle-aged man with a bulky frame. Following me all the way out here, what do you want from me? I doubt it's anything good, though. Yuan asked them with a frown on his face. Since you dared to ruin my face in the auction house before so many people and even directly in front of Lady Xuan's presence, I will have you pay for it with your life. Du Hai spoke loudly, his face filled with anger. Wait a second, what do you mean I ruined your face? Your face looks perfectly fine. I didn't even touch you, Yuan said with a bewildered expression. If you are going to lie, at least do it better. That's not what I mean. Are you making fun of me, you bastard? Du Hai stomped his feet in anger and he continued, Because of you, my reputation was ruined. You even embarrassed me in front of Lady Xuan. I won't forgive you even if you die. What an exaggeration. If you are going to kill someone just because they embarrassed you a little bit, you'll have to kill a lot of people in the future. That's going to be a hard lifestyle. Yuan shook his head, and he was unable to comprehend the thought process of these kinds of people. So what? I have already killed tons of people for messing with me, and it'll only get easier in the future. This is a world where the strong eats the weak, and where the weak has no privilege to complain. Yuan frowned and said, I don't care what kind of psychopathic world you live in, but I am not in a good mood today, so you should leave me out of it before I get angry. Ha 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 ha. The Du brothers burst out laughing at his words, and they spoke, So what if you get angry? What are you going to do to us? What can you do to us? You are a mere single spirit warrior, and we have 2 spirit warriors and 1 peak spirit master. Ha ha ha. I cannot believe that a nobody like you could be so entertaining. Well, since you made us laugh, we'll give you a quick and painless death. The Du brothers withdrew their swords and pointed them at Yuan. Yuan silently stared at the Du brothers with a grim expression, his aura slowly growing sharper and sharper, almost like a sword. When the spirit master saw this, he frowned and said to Du brothers, "Young masters, don't underestimate him. He's emitting a powerful aura that doesn't suit his level. He might have the strength to fight those above his own level. So what if he can fight people above his own level? We can also do the same." Dubai scoffed. "Are you looking down on us? Even though you are at the spirit master level, you are still just a mere guard that's hired by my family." Meanwhile, on the opposite side, Yuan asked Xiao Hua, "Do you think I will be able to win against those two?" Both of them are in the 5th level spirit warrior realm. Although they are slightly better than the disciple you defeated before, it shouldn't be a problem for Brother Yuan. That's all I need to hear. Yuan nodded before retrieving his own sword. "Oh? You also have a peak spirit-grade weapon? I guess you really didn't wander into the VIP room by accident. Ha 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 ha." However, unfortunately for you, having that sword won't change the outcome. The Du brothers then sheathed their swords and pulled out 2 peak spirit-grade swords a few seconds later. "I'm going to warn you two one last time. Do not force my hands," Yuan shouted at them with the sword in his hand tightly grasped. "Enough bullshitting. Let's get him, Dubai." Dubai nodded, and the two of them began rushing at Yuan. "This will be fun." A wide grin appeared on Yuan's face as he also stepped forward. A moment later, the three of them clashed, and Yuan maneuvered his sword like an expert, blocking both their sword strikes at once. "Let's see how long you can keep this up." The Du brothers began releasing a torrent of sword strikes at Yuan. Ding! 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 However, Yuan either deflected their attacks or perfectly blocked them, albeit barely. "This is much more difficult than I'd expected. If I want to win this fight, I will have to be the aggressive one." After being on the defensive side for a few more strikes, Yuan suddenly stepped forward and began attacking the Du brothers, catching them off guard. What powerful blows! He's not an ordinary one. The Du brothers began sweating after tasting just a few of Yuan's sword strikes. Meanwhile, Xiao Hua was not even paying attention to their fight, and she had her eyes on the spirit master this entire time, as she was prepared to kill him the moment he even tries to interfere with Yuan's fight. Just who is this brat? Which family does he belong to? To think he'd be able to fight the Du brothers by himself, and it even looks like he's slowly defeating them. The spirit master watched their fight with wide eyes filled with disbelief, and he began worrying that they might have picked the wrong person to fight with. The longer the spirit master watched Yuan's fight, the more shocked and worried he became. This young man is a genius. He's not only fighting back the young masters, but he's even growing stronger as he fights. He's a freaking monster. I cannot allow this to continue any longer, or the young masters will be in danger. The spirit master prepared to interrupt the fight, but he suddenly noticed an immense pressure not too far away, causing his eyes to shift to the small figure a few meters away who was staring dagger at him. That little girl. She's an expert like me. The spirit master's back was instantly soaked in cold sweat after this realization. Anyone would think she was Yuan's little sister at glance, but to think that she would be his guardian instead, it was truly a shocking revelation, and he was certain that this little girl's cultivation base was much more formidable than his own, as not even spirit grandmasters would be able to emit such a terrifying invisible pressure. However, he cannot just stand there and watch the Du brothers die to Yuan, as their parents would surely kill him for failing to protect them.